Hello, I'm Christian Stevenson with the Mississippi State University Extension Service in Hancock County, joining you for another online presentation. Very much appreciate you joining me today, either here in person or if you're watching the recording on YouTube. Very happy to have you here as well. Today, we're going to be talking about rain gardens. Before we get into that, I would like to make a special request, particularly for those of you who may be watching the recording and not able to attend the live presentation. I'm very happy with the success of these presentations. I'm glad that people are getting something out of them. And the request is that if you have topics that you would like to learn more about related to horticulture or natural resources or agriculture, I would very much appreciate it if you take just a minute to go down into the comment section and let me know some topics that you're interested in. That's going to give me the opportunity to figure out what everybody is interested in and make sure that I'm providing some programs that are meeting the needs of the people who are watching. So would appreciate you doing that. Also, if you're here on YouTube, you can hit the subscribe button. That'll let you know when those future videos are coming out. With all of that said, today we're going to be talking about rain gardens. This is just a really excellent, interesting topic. And a great way to provide some benefit to your landscape. I want to start off just what is a rain garden? A rain garden is an area in your landscape that temporarily stores rainwater until it can filter into the soil. This year, we have had an extraordinary amount of rain this spring, and a very frequent question that I get is how can I deal with some of the excess water that comes into my landscape? I think rain gardens offer a really good solution for that, because they take that water and they collect it and allow it to move down and filter into the ground, as well as filtering through the soil and through those plants. And one thing that I think is really important is that rain gardens treat all of that stormwater as a resource rather than treating it as a nuisance. And as a result of having a rain garden in your property, we can actually reduce stormwater runoff by as much as 99%. So all of that water that might be going into our ditches and further down the line can percolate down into our soil, and also provide an area in our landscape that can be really attractive. So one question that I immediately got when I announced that I was going to be giving a program about rain gardens is, how do I prevent rain gardens from creating breeding ground for mosquitoes? And while rain gardens absolutely do serve as an area where water can collect and again percolate down, they don't have surface water the entire time. So we don't have water ponding in that rain garden for a long period of time. They should really only have surface water for a couple of days following a large rain event. And because they don't have standing water for a long period of time, the mosquitoes are unable to actually complete their life cycle in the time that that water is there. So the adult female will lay eggs on the surface of the water. Those eggs, after a relatively short period of time, will hatch out into larvae, and those larvae are aquatic. Larvae and pupa both live in the water. It can be really distinctive because you can see them sort of moving up and wriggling up to the surface to get air. But they take generally longer than 7 days to complete that life cycle, that larva to pupa stage, before the adult would emerge. So because we're not keeping that water in there long term, we don't have a big issue with mosquitoes using rain gardens as a place where they would propagate. But rain gardens do offer quite a lot of benefits in our landscapes. And a lot of that comes down to improving water quality. And so as water goes into that rain garden, there are all sorts of biological and chemical processes with the plants themselves, with the soil and the microbes that are in the soil that will either store or break down any pollutants that might be coming in through the rainwater. And that will help with the downstream water quality that we might be concerned about. Of course, another issue there is, we'll often see when we have a big rain, we'll see our ditches just being almost overflowing, and in some cases overflowing. And having rain gardens, again, we're allowing more water to percolate there in the landscape. So we reduce a lot of that flooding that we might see at drainage inlets or in downstream areas. We're collecting, again, we're collecting any pollutants and sequestering that. We can also use them as a way to prevent erosion because we're reducing the volume of stormwater and the speed of that stormwater as it moves through the landscape. Of course, one element that I think is really important, again, because I get a lot of questions about dealing with wet areas in landscapes, is those wet areas can often be a little bit difficult to manage. And rain gardens provide a really attractive option, not only in how effective they are, but just the beauty of the plants that we can put in them that really take that difficult area of the landscape and allow it to shine. So just starting off, to kind of give you an idea, some pictures of rain gardens. You can see all of the color that can be, can be integrated into that. And I also think it's really great when we can incorporate multiple uses into a feature in the landscape. So a lot of the plants that we'll talk about being just really ideal for use in rain gardens also serve really well in support of some of the wildlife that we like to see in our landscape, like butterflies and hummingbirds and other birds that make use of the flowers or the seeds that are produced by these plants. So when we have a rain garden, we want to first, of course, find a location that is going to be ideal for where to put it. And generally, we do want to put that rain garden kind of in the main drainage way of the property or in lower sites that we have where water is sometimes pooling. So just sort of the no nonsense thing there, that where we want to put it is where the water is going. So if the water is already tending to pool in an area, or if the water is tending to flow in that direction, it's going to be a lot easier to establish that rain garden there. You do want to put them downslope from any structure. You don't want to put a water source or a water feature above your structures. And you do want to keep them about 10 feet from the house. And you do want to make sure that if you do have a septic system, you want to keep it away from your septic drainage area or the drain field of your septic tank, because we certainly don't want to interfere with that. Because water is going to be accumulating in that area, you don't want to have a really extensive slope, as that's going to be something that's going to be driving that water to move very quickly. So if you have a slope that's more than about 12%, some recommendations say 15, so I'm being a little bit conservative there. But if you have a slope greater than 12%, it's not going to be the ideal place because water's not going to want to spend its time there. You do want to stay away from large trees that you have in the landscape. Those large trees have a really extensive root system, and we are going to need to do some digging to make space for our rain garden. And so we want to avoid damaging the root systems of any trees because we want them to stay happy and healthy in our landscapes. And last, of course, for safety, anytime you dig, you do want to give 811 a call. Check for those underground utilities. Call before you dig. I have certainly seen some water pipes burst and other kinds of pipes burst as a result of digging. And it really makes things just a lot more complicated. And I want everybody to stay safe. So making sure that you just call and check before you do any digging is a really, really important thing to do. So once we find the location in our landscape, that we want to have our rain garden, we also want to figure out about how big of a rain garden we need. And ideally, we're looking at having a rain garden that's somewhere between around 5 and 7% of the total watershed. So, what do I mean by watershed? Watershed is all of the area of land where water will be coming down into that position. So, that's going to include all of the land where water drains to a specific point. And that may be your entire property, that may be a section of your property. You can really easily kind of watch that as you see rainfall and how rainfall water moves through the landscape. Or you can get out there with a garden hose and just figure it out that way by moving some water in your landscape to figure out the direction things are going. And while you know it seems like it really has to be quite large, 5 to 7%. If we look at 5%, we assume we have an area of about a third of an acre. That is 14,375 square feet for a third of an acre. If we multiply that by 0.05, we wind up with an area that's 719 square feet, call it 720. And so, a relatively small rain garden can accommodate a fairly large property and a fairly large watershed. So, kind of along with that, if you don't have the space to put in that big of a of a rain garden, if you don't have 720 square feet that you can dedicate to that, um, then it's perfectly okay. Having a smaller rain garden is still going to be beneficial. So just go down from there and have it be the size that you can accommodate in your landscape, and that is perfectly okay. Just something that I find particularly interesting is how much rainwater actually comes down in a relatively small area of space. And fortunately, somebody already did the math, and I know no one told you there was going to be math in a horticulture presentation today, and I apologize for that. Fortunately, most of this has already been done for me and is relatively straightforward. But 1 inch of rain in 1,000 square feet comes out to 623 gallons of water, which is quite a lot of water. And you can figure out the total rainwater that comes down into an area by multiplying the number of square feet times 623 and dividing by 1,000, and then multiplying by the average rainfall. And that's going to tell you over the course of a year what the average amount of water is coming down into a particular spot. So I did that for Hancock County, which is where I'm located. 62 inches of rain in 1,000 square feet gives us 38,626 gallons. Lee County gets a little bit less rain than us, just to pick a point up in North Mississippi. And even then, that's 34,888 gallons, which is, again, quite an awful lot of water. Of course, that is over the course of an entire year. So we figured out our location and we figured out our size. Shape is a much easier thing to deal with because, for the most part, the shape of your rain garden is really up to what you find attractive in your landscape. As a rule, people tend to find irregular shapes a little bit more pleasing to the eye than having just a really regular rectangle or circle. And so shapes like ovals or kidney shapes or teardrops tend to be the ones that people particularly enjoy. With that said, it's perfectly okay as well to have a rain garden that is really long and narrow. And we're going to talk a little bit about bioswales, which is basically the long ditch version of a rain garden, a little bit as we move forward. If you want to kind of just see how the water lays in your landscape, again, just using a garden hose and putting out some water, you can kind of define what the natural shape you might be able to accommodate with your rain garden can be. And it is a good idea when you're looking at the shape, just kind of figure out if you are going to use an inflow, if you want to have the downspout from your roof go into your rain garden, and you kind of figure out what, where that's going to go in. And you do want to figure out also where, if you're going to install an overflow pipe, where that's going to go out. So having that sort of thought out as we consider the shape of the rain garden can be really effective. And when you're getting ready to get started, there's absolutely nothing wrong. Just go out there and mark out that shape with a spray paint. Step back, take a look at it, and that's going to kind of help you define it as we start the process of constructing your rain garden. You do want to go a little bit bigger than you started, about a foot and a half from the edge where you're really thinking about getting that rain garden to start. And that is going to be where you want to remove any sod that is going to be in that location. So if you've got grass there, being able to pull that out about 18 inches is going to be helpful in the long run, because that grass tends to have a little bit of a habit of trying to grow into that planting bed. So now we've finally gotten to the stage where we can actually dig our rain garden. And the first step, of course, there is going to be removing the grass and the soil down to about 4 to 8 inches. And that is, as you do that, we're going to create a flat bottom. And that is going to give the space where the water can enter that area and percolate down evenly. If we are, as we're excavating soil out, if we are on a slope, you can pile some of that excavated soil into a berm on the downward side or the low side of that slope. And that is going to help your rain garden retain water. Just make sure you compress that down. Make sure that you keep it about 2 foot wide at the base and 1 foot wide at the top, because if it's too shallow, it might have a tendency to erode. Having that compressed wider berm is going to be much more effective at holding that water in. And you want that berm to be about 6 inches higher than the water level when the rain garden has all of its water coming in. One thing that's going to be really important as we look at building our rain garden is what our percolation rate is in our landscape. And there is a relatively easy way to figure that out. We just need to dig a hole, get our post hole digger out, dig down to about 2 feet, and pour in basically about a foot of water, so 12 inches of water. And what we're going to do is we're going to keep an eye on that and see how long it takes for water to percolate down into the soil. And again, we can do this with some relatively simple math. If we pour in 12 inches, 8 inches of that drains over a period of 12 hours. Then we can just do a little bit of simple division. And we know that, just about 2/3 of an inch or 0.67 inches is draining in an hour. And this can be really important because the percolation rate is going to affect how deep we need to dig down that rain garden. If we have a rain garden where that percolation rate is 0.5 inches or half an inch or more, so it might be up to a full inch, it could be even more. We want to dig our rain garden down to 18 inches, so a foot and a half. If the percolation rate is lower than half an inch in an hour, we're going to have to dig that rain garden deeper, or we're going to have to be adding in more soil that's going to be able to hold that water, because that percolation rate is slower. So we need to go down to a depth of 30 inches, so 2.5 feet. If we do have a percolation rate that's really slow, I mean, we can see this in areas with extraordinarily heavy clay soils. If that percolation rate is less than 1/10 of an inch in an hour, so we come back after 10 hours and only an inch of the water is gone, it's really not going to be a very good location to put a rain garden, simply because you have that hard pan. You're not able to get that water to move down through that location. We do want to keep in mind it is a even with a good percolation rate, sometimes we do need to add in overflow, and often that will be done by having a pipe that goes up at the top and a drainage hole that stays lower than the actual sides of the rain garden. And as water might fill up, if the rainwater is coming in too quickly, it can go into that drainage pipe and exit out to the regular place where water would drain out to a drainage inlet. French drains can also be made, though I do want to note that it's perfectly possible to build rain gardens without this feature. You just need to make sure that they're able to accommodate the volume of water that could be going into them. And you may see areas where, particularly around the outlet for the rain garden, where you may get erosion. And so adding in some permanent materials like rock or concrete can be used as a way to prevent that. So as we've gotten down, either dug our rain garden to 18 inches or all the way to 30, we do want to fill in that area with an in that excavated area with rain garden soil. Slope the sides gently, and kind of maintain a saucer shape to the structure or the surface of that soil. And that is going to provide a good storage area for the water to go into. If we have a soil that is relatively free of clay, um, we can use a mixture. It's about 2/3 of our native soil and about 1/3 of a good compost. And we can have that, make that compost ourselves, or we can purchase it. Either way is perfectly fine. So 2 scoops or 2 parts of our native soil, one of compost, and just put that in amended soil back into the raised bed, or excuse me, into the rain garden. I'm so used to raised beds that I say it in my sleep sometimes. That we put that back into the rain garden, that's going to do just fine for us. If we have a particularly heavy clay soil, we're going to want to add in some sand with that, and add in that compost. Having that sand is really going to help that water percolate down into our soil. So really quickly, a bioswale is essentially, the water is, traveling in a direction. And so a bioswale is a ditch where we're incorporating plants and incorporating soil that are going to allow us to get some of that water to percolate, as well as slow the movement of that water. And very similar to a rain garden, they absorb those flows of water. They carry runoff from heavy rains. And again, they have those same benefits of improving water quality by allowing that water to infiltrate or be taken up by the plants. They tend to be less expensive than putting in underground piping. And we tend to use some of the same plants we're going to talk about rain gardens, but really deep rooted native plants that help maintain and reduce maintenance for the swale. And again, we're looking at soil infiltration rates of about a half an inch or better, per hour, and we can size them just, again, by the amount of water, by the degree of water that it's coming through an area. You can see some examples here of relatively small bioswales in backyards to large sort of municipal projects where they have those plants in there and are allowing that water to be slowed and then taken up by those plants. So certainly my favorite part of any of this is going to be the plants that we use in these rain gardens. And we want to pay attention to the fact that rain gardens are dry as much as they're wet. So we need to make sure that we have plants that are going to be able to tolerate those varying conditions. And we want to think about the plants that we put into a rain garden by sort of three zones. The first of those are going to be at the very center of the rain garden. That is going to be sort of the wettest area. And we want to make sure that the plants there are going to be able to tolerate wet feet. As we get out into zone two, further away from the center of the rain garden, we have plants that are still going to have a good bit of water inundation fairly frequently. So they're going to need to be able to tolerate a little bit of standing water. But as we get out to the edge, we want to make sure that we're selecting some plants that can tolerate or they prefer those drier conditions. So I've just selected out some trees and shrubs and perennials and grasses that I think are particularly good for rain gardens. I'm not going to have the opportunity to discuss every single one of these because there's quite a few of them. So I've just picked out a few that I particularly like or had some comment about. But you can see there are quite a few trees that tolerate conditions in rain gardens very well. And I think that brings up a good point that while we're when we think about some of these garden features, we tend to think about small perennial flowers and things like that, but we can incorporate these much larger landscape features into our rain gardens as well. So red maples and green ash and black gum trees, even our oak trees and magnolia trees can do very well inside of a rain garden. So one of my favorite trees, I absolutely love red maples. The swamp red maple is essentially the same species as the common or regular red maple that we have here native in Mississippi. There is a variety of it, or that is Acerubrum ver Drummondi or Drummondii, and just like you would expect for your regular red maple, it can be a medium-sized tree, so get up between 40 and 60 feet in height. One thing that I particularly enjoy about red maples is they do flower very early, or essentially we can call it very early or very late in winter. And they even before they start putting on leaves. And because of that, they're one of the first nectar sources that are available to bees in our landscape. So I keep bees, and I like to see bees in the landscape. So having those maples there, always really good. Depends on how quickly it gets warm in the air, whether those flowers are going to be available for them. The other thing that I think is great about the maple trees is that we get that really great color from the foliage as well. And they're really good as an understory tree. So if you have an area where you're trying to put a rain garden, you have some larger trees that might put a little bit of shade in, it's still going to be perfectly fine. Pond cypress is dependent on who you speak to, either a very closely related species to bald cypress or it is a different species. Different botanists will tell you different answers. Regardless, it is very similar to bald cypress. In my experience, it's a little bit less prone to putting up knees. And the native habitat where it grows tends to be a little bit drier than that of the bald cypress. Of course, the bald cypress, we think of that growing out in the swamps where you have large accumulations of the bald cypress. Pond cypress tends to grow in areas, still depressions where it might be inundated on a regular basis, but also areas where it tolerates a little bit of dry conditions as well. So it tends to be a little bit more tolerant of that. And because of that, it's a good choice for a rain garden where you are going to be dealing with that range of different conditions. It does get up to a height of 50, 60 feet, really attractive conifer, and just a good feature in the landscape overall. Of course, we are in Mississippi, so we do love our magnolias. The Sweet Bay Magnolia is a, medium-sized tree, about 30 to 50 feet tall. Can spread up to 20 to 30 feet. And they can either be single trunked, sort of traditional tree shape, but they also do well having multiple trunks coming up from the ground. Their flowers and leaves are a little smaller than the traditional sort of Magnolia grandiflora or Southern Magnolia that we're also familiar with, but really do tolerate some differences in conditions. And those big flowers that they put on for a long period in the year do a fantastic job in the landscape. For the rare fruit tree that we can put in an area like this, Mayhaw is a tree that's very well adapted to wet areas. Of course, that grows down here in the very south of Mississippi. And one of the things that, the fruit of Mayhaw, of course, are very frequently used as making jelly. What I think is really attractive about them is the flowers that they put on beforehand. They are just absolutely gorgeous when they're flowering, and do a good job even in really wet conditions, but also up in a little bit more drained soils as well. Talk about some shrubs. Talk about Yupon Holly and Palmetto, but quite a few different shrubs. Of course, I do think it's important to mention that this is by no stretch of the imagination an exhaustive list of all of the plants that could potentially work in rain gardens. I've just picked out some that either I like or that had something to say about. Yupon Holly, I think, is just a great plant overall in the landscape. If you look at it by its scientific name, it's not particularly attractive, Ilex fumitoria, and that goes back to the leaves being used to make a tea. Though, from what I understand, they don't actually deserve the name vomitoria, but really attractive shrub, can get up to larger than 25 feet. But there are both dwarf and weeping varieties available to give you a lot of different features. Really nice red berries. Of course, the berries are just on the female plants, but there are enough wild Yupon hollies around that you don't really have to worry that there's going to be a pollinator for that, because the Yupon holly grows fairly broadly throughout South Mississippi. Another great feature of Yupon holly is they tolerate being trimmed into hedges very well. So they make a good hedging plant, or make a good plant where you can topiary it down into the shape that you would like it to be in your landscape. Interesting. Dwarf Palmetto. I'm going to mention this one. It is unfortunately not one of my favorite plants, but that is just a matter of taste. So if you like it, then I encourage you to plant it and enjoy it. It has really large fan-shaped leaves, generally speaking, somewhere between 5 and 10 feet tall. The leaves can be about 4 foot across, so really large. Kind of a quickly expanding feature in the landscape. Puts on some white blooms in clusters that are followed by a black fruit. And if you do grow it in an area with a lot of standing water, it tends to start to put, kind of grow up from the ground a little bit in a trunk. So if you kind of want that palm feature, I think this is a good option, and will perform very well in the landscape. Buttonbush is one I particularly like. It's a multi-stem shrub. can be anywhere between 6 and 12 feet tall. Has these really nice clusters of flowers, and those flowers are extraordinarily small, and they form together into these spheres. And all those little spikes you see coming out of that are the pistils of the flower, and just a really attractive display in the landscape. Not only attractive to due to appearance, but also really attractive to birds and butterflies. Something that will see a lot of visitors as you put it out in the landscape. Sweetspire is a deciduous to semi-evergreen shrub. So warm year, it may not lose all those leaves. Gets up to about 8 feet. Really nice spires of blooms that are about 4 inches long. Really nice white flowers. And another plant that can give us a little bit of fall color. So a little bit of red or purple coloration that we can get in the fall. As you can see, there is an extraordinarily expansive list of perennials that can go very well into rain gardens. Again, not going to be able to mention all of them, but just a lot of really great options and a lot of variety and color that we can introduce out into the landscape, as well as some, a lot of great variety in forms. So things like ferns, lower growing flowers, clusters of flowers, just a lot of options available for us. One plant that I think just has an unfortunate name is Joe Pyeweed. Joe Pyeweed is a fantastic plant for the landscape. Wish it didn't have weed in its name, but really a nice, tall, it's up to 7 feet tall, sort of clump forming perennial. Has these gorgeous sort of pinkish purple flowers that form in compound inflorescences in the midsummer into fall. Have a really great smell to them, kind of vanilla like, and are really attractive to butterflies. Very frequently recommend Joe Pyeweed for inclusion in butterfly gardens. So they do have some dwarf varieties of this now that are going to be a little bit shorter. So if you don't want something that's 7 feet tall, you still have this as an option. And even after the flowers go away, it has some really nice seed heads. So you see a lot of really great features out of this plant. It's one that I very frequently recommend to people. Of course, irises are going to be great for wet areas. There are quite a few species of irises. Even Louisiana iris is a group of several different species. They are evergreen. They really like sunny conditions. Can be up to 3 feet tall. Very easy to plant by rhizome, and they form a nice clumping perennial that puts out just absolutely stunning flowers in the spring. One thing you do want to make sure that you do with your irises is you should dig them every few years, because those rhizomes are going to get a little bit crowded, and they start to compete with one another just a little bit. Coreopsis, again, a group of a large number of species. There are about 80 different species of Coreopsis. Very attractive to birds and butterflies as well. Really nice upright clumps. There are species that are annuals and species that are perennials. So it is a good idea to know which one you're getting. But once they're established, they do like a little bit more moisture as they're getting started off, but they actually tolerate drought fairly well once they're established. And you can get a variety of different Coreopsis and really show off a lot of different colors, from pinks and reds to yellows and whites. Just a fantastic variety of color. One of my personal favorites, and one that I have in my home landscape, is Texas Star Hibiscus. It is a multi-branched native perennial, puts up a lot of different shoots, has these absolutely ridiculous, huge blooms on them, very attractive to hummingbirds and butterflies, grows very quickly, and is relatively easy to divide. So you can divide the clump of it in the spring and spread it out, plant it a few feet apart in your landscape, and have more of this feature. But just a really gorgeous, large, sort of mallow type flower. We've already mentioned milkweed a little bit before we got started with the presentation today. There are native milkweeds that tolerate wet conditions fairly well. So swamp milkweed and aquatic milkweed. There are a variety of different milkweeds that can be used. Of course, milkweeds are, their flowers are attractive to a range of butterflies. But of course, their foliage is an important food source for monarch butterflies, for their caterpillars. And I do encourage people to go and look at Crosby Arboretum. It's located in Picayune, Mississippi. They do have a website that's right here on this slide. And they have a lot of information that they've put together on these native milkweeds. They do a native plant sale where you can get some of them if you're interested in that. And it's a really great source for plants for rain gardens as well as plants for your butterfly gardens. There are some grasses and sedges that work well in rain gardens. Not going to spend a lot of time on this. Little bluestem is a really common one. Upright appearance kind of adds a little bit of a tall growing appearance. Get a really nice variation in foliage from green to blue to purple, even some red and bronze coloration in the fall. Doesn't really have much of a showy seed head on it, but it does very well in relatively poor soils without a lot of work. So it's a great grass that you can put in. It's just kind of no nonsense. Of course, the one of the grasses that people really think of when they think of ornamental grasses is muley grass. Um, Tends to like sort of wetter soil as it develops, but can get very drought tolerant once it establishes. Just huge numbers of either pink or white flowers in the fall, in October when less things are blooming. So it makes it a really attractive plant in the landscape. Really fine blue green or gray green foliage goes up to 2 or 3 feet tall. And just puts on a show when not a lot of other things are showing off in the landscape. Just to kind of close things out, for maintenance of rain gardens, fortunately, maintenance is relatively simple and straightforward. It is a good idea to apply a mulch layer. We want to prevent weeds as much as possible. And the heavier sort of shredded wood type mulches won't float away on us if they get wet. And you want to go out there and check that mulch annually and make sure that you're replenishing it as you need to. Keep in mind that a lot of the plants may need a little bit more water as they're establishing. So if we're establishing our rain garden and we do have dry conditions, then we may need to add some supplemental water in there just to make sure everything is already really well established in the landscape. We don't, generally speaking, need to apply any fertilization. The mulch that we're adding in, the compost that we're adding in will generally serve for all of the needs of those plants. And you will need to go in there and make sure no weeds are coming out. It may be necessary occasionally to prune back plants just for shaping in the rain garden. And the last thing that you really want to make sure you're doing is if you don't want to make sure that if you have an inflow pipe into your rain garden, or if you have an outflow pipe, you want to make sure that that's not going to be getting plugged up because you want that water to be able to flow, unobstructed through that. That's really all there is to maintenance. They're relatively simple once they get established. So once it gets into once it's fully developed, once the plants have a really good established root system, the rain garden really has a lot of virtues in the landscape. It's taking in that water, avoiding you having an area of your landscape that's too wet because you're using that as a feature. You're using it as a place where you can put in some plants that are attractive to birds and attractive to butterflies. and it is a relatively low maintenance area in your landscape. So, really great option for all sorts of home landscapes all across the southeastern U.S. So I really appreciate your time and attention today. Would encourage you again, if you are watching on YouTube, if you have any questions, you can put those down in the comment section, and I will be very happy to get to those. Again, as I said at the beginning, if you have any comments or if you have something that you would like to see a presentation on, I would be very happy to do that. If you don't want to put a question, if you don't want to put your question or your comment in the comment section, invite you to send me an email. Right there is my email address, c.stevenson@mstate.edu. Or you can give me a call here at the Extension office in Hancock County, which is 228-467-5456. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.